Rally. Tonight, more details on Mr. X, the mysterious consultant identified in a scathing report about the Greenbelt.
Part of what smells is the fact that huge loopholes in the law actually allow for secret unethical lobbying.
The Integrity Commissioner's report found the consultant may have engaged in unregistered lobbying to have land removed from the Greenbelt. Multiple sources now telling CBC Mr. X is the former mayor of Clarington. Plus,
with Moriyama's buildings, the really beautiful thing is you don't have to know much, you just have to feel it.
Remembering Raymond Moriyama, the visionary architect behind structures like the Ontario Science Centre and the Toronto Reference Library, has died. Ed.
It's clear that they're not coming here to have a peaceful event.
Cracking down on a planned illegal car rally, we take you to Wasaga Beach, where police have already laid nearly 100 charges.
This is CBC Saturday News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. We begin with the latest twist in the controversy involving Ontario's Greenbelt and a figure named in a report by the province's Integrity Commissioner. Mr. X was listed as one of two consultants who may have engaged in unregistered lobbying to have certain lands removed from the Greenbelt. Sources now tell CBC News Mr. X is John Mutton, the former mayor of Clarington. Ithil Musa has been tracking reaction.
The mysterious development consultant in Ontario's Integrity Commissioner's scathing report has been identified as John Mutton. Mutton once served as the mayor of Clarington, Ontario, and according to the report, he was one of two consultants hired by a landowner to get protections removed from land in that community for housing development. The report says Mutton, or Mr. X, may have engaged in unregistered lobbying and potential lobbying violations while doing that work.
I mean, this whole situation smells very badly, but part of what smells is the fact that huge loopholes in the law actually allow for secret unethical lobbying.
Another political expert agrees.
There's virtually no opportunity for a court or for the Integrity Commissioner to sanction somebody for violation of the Lobbyist Act in Ontario. There's significant sanctions federally, but not in Ontario.
The report says Mutton met with senior political staffers in the housing minister's office. There was an apparent offer for tickets to a Toronto Raptors game, as well as a paid lunch. The report also says Mutton was promised $1 million payout if he succeeded in influencing governments to allow housing to be built on his client's land. Ontario's Integrity Commissioner J. David Wake says Housing Minister Steve Clark violated ethics rules when lands were removed from Ontario's protected Greenbelt for housing development. It also says he failed to properly oversee the process, leading certain developers to further their private interests.
We're starting to see the money trail.
Ontario's Green Party leader wants a public inquiry and an RCMP investigation.
We need the Integrity Commissioner to do additional investigation around whether illegal, unregistered lobbying took place. I think this also highlights why we need an RCMP investigation.
The Federal Police Service says it's still assessing whether there are grounds for a criminal investigation. CBC reached out to John Mutton and Premier Doug Ford's office with no response yet. Ithil Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
One of the country's most revered architects has died. Raymond Moriyama designed some of the country's most recognizable buildings, from the Ontario Science Centre and the Toronto Reference Library to the Canadian War Museum in Ottawa. As CBC's Tyler Cheese reports, the architect will be remembered for his innovative designs that encouraged civic engagement.
It's a huge loss for architecture in Canada.
Raymond Moriyama was an internationally known architect. His designs incorporated elements of inclusion and multiculturalism long before the ideas took hold in the mainstream.
Moriyama was certainly one of the great, if not the greatest, Canadian practitioners of the 20th and early 21st centuries. And the era in which he sort of came of age and started designing was what we sometimes look at as a sort of golden age of Canadian architecture.
Moriyama was born in Vancouver in 1929, but because of his Japanese heritage during World War II, he spent much of his youth at an internment camp.
That, I think, really shaped that spirit of democracy and openness.
After attending architecture schools at the University of Toronto and McGill University, Moriyama went on to open his own firm. His first big project, the Ontario Science Centre.
With a very small office at the age of 33, just a few years out of school, the province hired him for this commission, which is a very elaborate and new kind of program.
His work still influences the way museums are designed even today.
Moriyama was one of the people who invented this kind of hands-on experiential museum, when before this museums were very, very static and very much about displays and reading. And this is a museum where people were asked to kind of engage very haptically in the material, and it's almost somewhere between a landscape and a playground.
The future of this building is currently uncertain, with plans from the province to relocate the facility to Ontario Place.
And it's a great tragedy to me that a heritage building such as this one can be threatened by demolition.
Another example of Moriyama's work, the Toronto Reference Library.
If you walk in there, you'll see it's one of our truly most democratic spaces, and that it's people coming in from all walks of life who are sort of free to spend time there. It sort of welcomes you in and it pulls you in, and you feel Torontonian, and you get a sort of feeling for the pulse of the city like nowhere else.
Moriyama Tashima Architects confirmed the Canadian icon died Friday, September 1st. Its statement reads, "The world has lost a visionary architect." Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
Residents who fled the wildfire threatening Yellowknife in a nearby First Nation will learn details this hour about the plan for them to return home on Wednesday. The biggest issue is what services will be available. People from other communities still evacuated are being warned not to go to Yellowknife because of that. Other details expected include advice on making the journey home safely and what supports are still available for those who can't return home immediately because of health problems. Heading south of the border now, where U.S. President Joe Biden is in Florida to get a first-hand look at the damage caused by Hurricane Idalia. CBC's Katie Nicholson is following that story.
The wrath of Idalia, a daunting mess on the ground. Stunning from the sky. Now, President Joe Biden experiencing firsthand the destruction and meeting with locals to listen to the need for help and make this promise.
To the people of Florida, as I told your governor, if there's anything your state needs, I'm ready to mobilize that support. Your nation has your back, and we'll be with you until the job is done.
Noticeably absent from this tour, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Though the two were talking throughout the hurricane.
Hello.
And as late as Friday, the governor even taking a call from the president while on his own tour of the area.
We're in Horseshoe Beach now. It's pretty rough here, and there's a lot of folks putting stuff together.
DeSantis' office issued a statement saying the security preparations that would go into setting up a meeting with the president might impact recovery efforts in the rural area. This despite the fact that DeSantis was in this area just yesterday, and that his office helped coordinate this visit.
When the president contacted the governor to let him know he was going to be visiting, we mutually agreed, the governor's team and my team mutually agreed on a place that would have minimal impact into operations.
DeSantis' decision, a break from tradition. It was just 2 years ago he and Biden toured the Surfside condo collapse together in Miami, after 98 people were crushed in the debris.
Thank you, Mr. President.
But back then, DeSantis wasn't seeking the GOP nomination. Whatever the reason for not showing today, DeSantis may have to work closely with Biden in the coming weeks. Idalia and her billions of dollars of damage, just the first major hurricane of what is shaping up to be a very active season. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Washington.
It is one of the strongest typhoons to threaten China in 7 decades, and now it's reached the mainland. Winds of 200 kilometers an hour eased to about 160 and were weakening further. They still toppled trees. Earlier, there was heavier damage in Hong Kong. Across the region, 1 death has been reported, and at least 50 people were sent to hospital. An estimated 900,000 people had to be moved to safety as the typhoon approached. Sophia Kambalia joins us with a first look at the forecast. Sophia, quite the images coming out of China. 900,000 people. It's quite a lot.
We're actually watching another typhoon approaching Taiwan and then heading on to mainland China within the next couple of days. really abnormally warm sea surface temperatures in the Pacific driving these tropical storms. And really warm temperatures are going to be our story for the next few days as well here at home. The warmest temperatures that we've seen by far this entire summer are at our doorstep, folks. You've been telling me it's been an abysmal summer when it comes to temperatures being on the cool side and all the rain. That's going to end soon. This big prolonged ridge of high pressure is going to be an extended house guest, sticking around until Wednesday at least. It's bringing warmth up from the Gulf of Mexico and the Panhandle. We've only really had a handful of days seasonal or above in August. July was super rainy. The last time we had a stretch of a few 30-degree days was the end of May into June. In fact, it was the first August in 10 years that we haven't had a 30-degree day. Last time was early or end of July, depending on where you are. That stretch ends tomorrow. You will be feeling like the mid-30s, forecast temperature at around the low 30s, and then Monday and Tuesday, I'd gamble that somebody is actually going to hit 35, feeling like the low 40s. Now, this is great for the air show, no cancellations like last year, great for the CNE, but we'll talk about what it means for back to school in the long range with these soupy conditions.
All right, thanks very much, Sophia.
You're welcome.
In Toronto, a driver in his 60s has life-threatening injuries after a single vehicle crashed in Etobicoke early this morning. It happened near the intersection of Kipling and Evans around 3:30. The man was transported to hospital. All roads have now reopened. People living in Wasaga Beach are seeing an increased police presence in the town tonight in response to a planned unsanctioned car rally. The town was granted an injunction to stop the gathering, but police aren't taking any chances, laying nearly 100 charges. While some say that's keeping things peaceful, other residents say they're being inadvertently targeted in the crackdown. Our Patrick Swadden spent the day in the town and has more.
This was the scene in Wasaga Beach Labor Day weekend 2021, and again last year. Town officials say these kinds of car rallies started popping up at the start of the pandemic and have been highly problematic. But this year, the lakeside community, a popular summer destination, is putting its foot down.
The town on Tuesday was granted an injunction that prohibits individuals from participating in, attending, or organizing and advertising an illegal car rally in the town of Wasaga Beach.
That move in response to posts online saying the H2OI car rally would be returning to Wasaga Beach this Labor Day weekend. Police laid nearly 200 charges at last year's rally. That's when 2 OPP vehicles had their windows smashed with officers inside.
They were really coming here to be disruptive. There's lots of in the social media posts, there's lots of conversation about takeovers. So it's clear that they're not coming here to have a peaceful event.
In response, Wasaga Beach has closed some of the roads for anything but local traffic and have set up multiple vehicle checkpoints at entrances to the town, saying anyone coming to town with modified vehicles for the rally could face fines or arrest. OPP have set up various posts and are patrolling the streets.
There was approximately 97 provincial offense notices issued yesterday, a variety of charges in the Highway Traffic Act as well as the Liquor License Act.
But OPP wouldn't comment on how many tickets, if any, are for modified vehicles. The added police presence is noticeable, with OPP cruisers passing behind me every few minutes. Some saying the added company has helped turn would-be ralliers aside. But some, including residents of Wasaga Beach themselves, are frustrated and say it's overkill.
He needs to get to work. He doesn't have a vehicle to get to work. He is trying his hardest. He fixes this stuff on his own.
These people live in Wasaga Beach but were pulled over by the Ministry of Transportation and now have to have their vehicle towed for repairs.
How come the little Jetta got to leave? They had an exhaust that was loud, tires that were stretched, rims that were pointed out.
Other residents say the weekend has stayed peaceful, but both Wasaga Beach and OPP are saying to anyone planning to come this weekend, think again.
If you are committing a criminal act here and you are not stopped or investigated on that specific day, you can expect that we do continue investigations following this long weekend and you may face charges in relation to that.
Patrick Swadden, CBC News, Wasaga Beach.
In other news, music fans are toasting a pop culture legend with a margarita tonight. Singer Jimmy Buffett, who earned fame with a series of hits back in the 1970s, all themed on laid-back leisure, has died.
Some people claim that there's
Buffett entered music as a busker in university. The theme behind songs like Margaritaville, It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere, and Cheeseburger in Paradise emerged when he lived on Florida's vacation island of Key West. And the theme became a brand, inspiring T-shirts, restaurants, hotels, even a retirement community, and made Buffett a millionaire. Still, he maintained he was happiest touring, playing barefoot. Jimmy Buffett was born Christmas Day, 1946. He was 76 years old. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Well, the start of school is just a few days away, and like every year, thousands of students will be moving from different parts of the world to start their life as international students in Canada. This week, we spoke with a student from Centennial College who had that experience and is now part of a team leading a campaign to support new students with information about affordability, mental health, and transit.
When I first arrived in Toronto, I felt out of place. I had no one to turn to.
The major problem that I faced was I didn't have many people when I first arrived here because I left everyone that I ever knew back home in India. And when I came here, I was completely lost. And luckily for me, after a whole year and doing my second program, which is the current program that I'm pursuing, I was lucky enough to find international students who are facing the same issues. Basically, they didn't have friends either. So we decided to band together and, we became like a family. This campaign that we did was in collaboration with Centennial College as our client. And we wanted to let international students who are coming into Canada know that the college has resources, and because a lot of students, they know that the college has resources, but they don't refer to it, which makes it harder for them once they arrive in Canada to actually get the help that they need because they're confused, they don't know what to do. And that's mostly because they don't look at the resources that the college has. So we tried to look for the best way possible where we could try and see how we can make students aware of these resources and their importance. And we realized that what better way to make awareness than to use human faces as the story. So we decided to do a multimedia campaign on Instagram as well as YouTube. So for Instagram, we made a Humans of New York style campaign on Instagram where we would post portraits of international students and tell their story basically. And on YouTube, we would use their experiences as a way to guide students on how to settle down in Canada.
Preparing food at home would be your best bet at saving money. Spend on whole foods, fruits, and fresh veggies. Grocery stores like Food Basics, Freshco have the lowest grocery prices.
I would say international students, I feel like the resources that we currently have are not enough. We need more resources, but there needs to be more support in terms of housing because affordability is one big issue that we are currently facing, and doing a part-time job is not cutting it for us right now.
Always give yourself an extra 15 minutes when using the transit because commuting in Toronto can get frustrating sometimes.
The major contribution of international students is the culture and the diversity that they bring here. And that's the beauty of Toronto, right? We have so many different cultures participating together. And in the class that I am in right now, we have people from so many different countries, and majority of the class is made up of international students. And when we banded together, we realized that we have so many things in common, even though we are so different in terms of culture. And that cultural exchange keeps us going, we discover new things about their culture, and then we learn so much about each other. And, you just want to keep supporting each other at the end of the day.
You've likely heard the roar of engines overhead if you're in Toronto today. The Canadian International Air Show is back for the last weekend of the CNE, with pilots showcasing their skills.
The training that these guys do when they're pulling Gs, they have to maintain a really healthy lifestyle. They're working out, they're eating right, they're constantly training. They are all so exact and precise with what they do. They practice the same routine over and over again so that there's no mistake.
This year, the popular U.S. Navy Blue Angels are back for the first time in almost 15 years. The Blue Angels and the Canadian Forces Snowbirds are co-headliners. The air show continues until Monday. And for those looking for something to do other than the CNE, the Toronto International Busker Fest is back for another year. For buskers, it's an opportunity to share some of their talents and connect with others.
My favorite part of Busker Fest is getting to meet and connect with all of the other amazing, talented street performers that this city has to offer. We usually don't get to hang out together, and I love being in the green room and meeting the circus acts and the musicians and everybody. It's great.
From circus acts to daredevil performances, there is plenty to see. Attendees are encouraged to bring money to tip the buskers for their shows. New to this year is Bark in the Park, a show filled with special four-legged performers that will provide some tail-wagging fun.
We actually have 4 differently able dogs in the show, which is a little unique. 3 of them are deaf and 1 of them has spina bifida. And those dogs have 5 Guinness World Records among them. So that's really cool that we find such amazing success and hopefully inspire people not to overlook these dogs.
Admission for the festival will go to support Epilepsy Toronto. You can find Busker Fest at Woodbine Park. It runs until Labor Day Monday. Sophia Cavalier joins us for a look at the extended forecast. Can't help but smile, but that little guy just making his way down. He can do it.
And so much creativity with all those folks. If you're heading out to any events over the next couple days, you want to be prepared and hydrate and dress for what will feel like 40. Yes, you mentioned the heat warning earlier. Anywhere from Grimsby to Guelph up to Barrie to Bowmanville, currently under that heat warning. Great stable skies for any of the events this weekend, including the CNE and the air show that you just heard about. Last year we had all the cancellations, no chance of that this year. But again, this is hot, sticky, and overwhelming weather for anybody that's susceptible to heat-related illness. Also a fairly high UV. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's set this story with how cool it has been. It's actually been really the median temperature in August has been what the overnights are going to be like over the next couple days. This is uncomfortable overnight sleeping weather for anybody that doesn't have an air conditioning. Yes, the median or mean temperature throughout the month of August, which was really cool, was around the low 20s. It was kind of a gray month as well. Sunday afternoon, though, that heat really pushes in. It's an extended heat period right until Wednesday, feeling close to 40 on Sunday. The peak of this ridge, though, is Monday and Tuesday, where I have a feeling someone will actually get to a core temperature of 35, feeling into the low 40s. The heat sticks around for Wednesday as well, and look at that, those warm overnight lows. This is the story really for everybody in Southern Ontario, and I have to say, kids going back to school midweek will be dressing more like the middle of summer as opposed to fall, and no sweater weather here.
Who said summer is over? Thanks, Sophia.
Yeah, it's an extended stay.
That is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. You can stay caught up on news anytime on our website, cbcnews.ca. Have a great night.